Alright, so the first thing we're going to need to do is remove the drain plug, which is right down here. Just going to use a 3/8 socket extension for that. And then once it's empty, put the plug back in, and then we'll remove this top plug up here using the same extension and refill it using a differential fluid pump. Alright, so it's having some issues just using a socket, and it's not at a very good angle. So I'm going to go ahead and use an impact wrench, get this loosened. See, this does have a magnetic plug on it, which I just want to check for, look for metal shavings on it. And this one actually, tiny bit on there, but it's actually looking pretty good. So I'm not seeing any significant wear coming from the rear differential. Alright, after we get the plug cleaned off, before we put it back on, you're going to want to change this crush washer that was on it. And to do that, we're going to use one of these 18mm crush washers. Got these off Amazon. I'll put the link below to the right size. I think they came in like a 5-pack, so it's the same size. It's also used on the transmission plug as well. So let's put the new crush washer on, and then we'll go ahead and put this back on. Alright, so I was about to put the plug back on, so it's still slowly draining. So what I'm actually going to do is jack up the front of the car a little bit, just so that the last little bit of fluid does pour out. Alright, now that that's basically drained, we can go ahead and put the plug back in. Just be careful when you're putting this in not to cross thread the hole. Alright, now that the drain plug's back in, we want to remove the fill plug, which is up higher inside this cutout. I'm just going to try and get my impact wrench in there, but the spare tire's in the way, so I'm going to go ahead and remove the spare tire. Alright, to get the spare tire down, if you've never done it before, inside the trunk there's a little flap here that says spare tire on it. Just pry that up. Inside you'll see a 5-point bolt. You take the lug nut wrench, on the very inside of that is a 5-point socket. So just put that down on top of there, and you're going to spin it counterclockwise. And once it's low enough to the ground, you can go ahead and pull the tire. Alright, now that the spare's out of the way, there's actually a whole lot more room to work. It might make sense just to drop the spare from the start. It's going to give you a whole lot more room in there to move around. So I'm going to go ahead and get that fill plug removed now. As expected, that was on there pretty good. Took a lot of torque to get that thing loose. So plug's down though now, and we're going to go ahead and refill it through that hole. And while we're at it, we're also going to replace this crush washer that's on here. Alright, so the fill plug is actually larger than the drain plug was, so it uses a different size crush washer. Here's the drain plug washer, which I believe is 18mm, and here's the fill plug washer, which I believe is a 24, but I got the link to the specific part down in the description, so you get the right size. And we'll go ahead and replace that washer and put it back on. So we're going to replace the fluid here. It calls for 2.9 quarts of differential fluid. So I got this off Amazon. Aside from that, you can get it from the dealer. Might be a little bit more expensive, but you could probably get it sooner if you didn't plan ahead. And to change the fluid, I'm going to use this fluid pump that I got from Harbor Freight. Works pretty well. I used this previously when I did this job last time, and I'm using this just for this job. These cheap enough. I think it was $5 or $6. So this one's kind of married to this vehicle, so that I don't mix fluids with some other differential fluid. So we'll go ahead and get that pump now, and we're basically going to fill it. It calls for 2.9 quarts, but we're going to fill it until it overfills. Starts coming back out of the hole. Alright, so when we're refilling this pump has a in and an outside. We'll make sure that we stick the in down into the bottle of differential fluid, and the out goes into the fill hole. Now they also do make pumps that fit on the top of the bottle, which if you don't have help might be easier to use than this pump, because you'll see this hose doesn't really go into the differential very far, so you have to make sure you're keeping it in the hole while you're trying to pump, which can be somewhat challenging. You know, at the same time you got to make sure that this hose is down into the bottom of your bottle of differential fluid. And looks like okay, and that's full. Give it one more pump. You can't really overfill it. Kind of, it is self-leveling here to prevent it from overfilling. So basically, once it stops coming out of the fill hole, you know you're right at the 2.9 quarts. Now that it's refilled with differential fluid, we're going to take our fill plug with our new crush washer on it. Go ahead and thread that back onto the fill hole. Again, do this by hand. Make sure you're not cross-threading bolt. And if you're on a lift, you could do this by hand, but I'm going to go ahead and use the impact wrench just to snug it down. And once that's done, go ahead and put the spare tire back on if you pulled it, and the job is complete. If this video was helpful, click the like button and subscribe to the channel. Thanks.